most people will only consider organ donation when a loved one is in trouble and they need a kidney. Um, Not all families are able to provide a kidney, and that could be on medical grounds. Um, and I'm the mother of a son, and I'm in that position. So I'm absolutely fascinated after reading the story about you back last year, being an altruistic donor. I didn't really know much about altruistic donors, and I really wanted to know what made you want to donate one of your kidneys to a stranger.
Well, it wasn't anything very dramatic. I'd like to say, that there was a clap of thunder or something, or that I knew somebody, but it didn't. I just suddenly, it came to me that you didn't have to be related, blood-wise to somebody to donate, that spouses and even friends could donate. And I thought, well, I was 63 and I felt I'd had a privileged life and I was very healthy. And I thought, well, I could give a kidney. It just seemed easy, just, like people donate blood to other people.
One of the quotes that I've read from an interview that you gave, and I absolutely love this, is when someone asked you what made you donate, and you said, well, you would save, or you would try to save someone who was drowning, wouldn't you? And if you donate a kidney, it's a lot less perilous to yourself. Do you still feel like that now?
Very much so. And also, horses for courses. It won't be for everybody, but I'd like everybody to know that it is a possibility.
Yeah, sure. I know that you had to fight the legal system for quite a number of years, about 5 years, we're allowed to actually donate. How did you feel about that when the doctors were sort of questioning your sanity or your motives for actually wanting to donate part of your body to someone else?
Yes, well, it wasn't even anybody qualified that I first ran into trouble with. I wrote initially to the Minister of State, and he passed my letter on to the Department of Health. And just somebody there wrote back and said, oh, thank you for offering, but we don't do that. And assumed I would go away. And I'm not really known for going away. I am a bit of a terrier. And I thought, well, why? And so I wrote back and said, why is that? And I would like to do it. And there are people in need. And I think it was another person wrote back, administrator, saying that doctors didn't like to operate on somebody if they couldn't see a distinct advantage for that person. And that it was justified with friends even, because the friend would have a well friend subsequently. So that was in their interest as well. And that they'd had previous people coming and they'd had to tell them, no, you can't. And so I wrote a third time saying, well, I don't think that's a good enough reason, really, considering people are dying for want of a kidney. But they wrote back, and that was when I decided that they would want to dismiss me as being a bit of a crank anyway.
Yeah. So do you think that that's had a major impact on the fact that even though living donation is now a thing, helped obviously massively by your first act, do you think this is one of the reasons why there hasn't been this revolution that they were hoping was going to take off? I read somewhere in the Independent that you were instrumental in this social and legal revolution in terms of the future of living donation. Do you feel as though that revolution has really fulfilled itself?
Oh no, and in fact, I wouldn't have foreseen that. It's obviously not for everybody, and but the more people know, the more likely they are at least to consider it. That's the important thing. And obviously, if somebody is reluctant, and of course, some friends and relatives are reluctant.
Yes.
And that was the thing as well, that the Department of Health spoke about money changing hands. And I wrote back and I said, you can't exchange money with somebody you don't even know. Money's much more likely to exchange hands between relatives and friends. So no, but I still think that more publicity would definitely lead to more donations.
Okay. How did you explain the decision that you wanted to donate a kidney to your family? Because this is something that somebody might be in a position where they feel as though they might want to do it, but that their family might want to hold them back in some way, might not be comfortable, might be afraid for them. How did you explain? How did it work with your family?
Well, because I made those inquiries so early, and my family knew then, but nothing came of it, I would bring it up every so often. And so by the time it came round, it had less of an impact than it might have done if I'd said I'm doing it next week. I'm about to have reservations. We have reservations about our children doing things, especially climbing mountains and etc. Really risky things. And I explained to them that every surgery has some risk, but tiny, and that the risks in general weren't going to be big. And one daughter said to me, "But what if one of us needed a kidney?" And I said, "Well, there are 4 of you, and you're all about the same age. There'd be no need for you to have one, and there isn't kidney disease in the family, and it's mostly families with kidney disease who have problems."
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. The testing process is rigorous. I didn't even get started on it because I am unable to donate because I've had cancer. My husband went through most of the process, and they found out that he had a aneurysm on a kidney, so he couldn't donate. It's frustrating, but obviously they're not going to let him donate because it's not in his best interest. And this is part of the process, is it's meant to be there to safeguard everybody. Was there ever a point doing the testing that you found the whole process too much, or did you find it easy? How was it for you?
Well, I was retired, so my time was my own. So I was living in Hertfordshire, and getting to West London was not too onerous. And secondly, because I was the first one, there was no real protocol thought through. And so, I would turn up for something and the person I was seeing wasn't there, and I would have one test when I could have had 2 and things. And so I had many more appointments than were actually necessary, and it was all protracted. And the hilarious one was that when you donate to a stranger, you have to see a psychiatrist to check that you're suitable. And they totally forgot about that. So nearly 11 months on, when the operation was planned, they realised they hadn't referred me, and the psychiatric department in the hospital had a 9-month waiting list. And so they paid for me to go to the Priory to be seen, where I had a lovely chat with a chap who certainly didn't say that I wasn't suitable. Yes, but now it's totally different. It's so streamlined and organised. It's really quite different.
Yes, that's good. Did you have to change how you lived, or you ate, what your diet, or did you do any different exercises or anything to make sure that you had the perfect kidney for your recipient? Did you have feel a pressure to be super healthy?
Absolutely not. And that's just prompted me to remember that when I used to go to the outpatient department in the hospital, I always took a book and kept my head down, because I didn't want to converse particularly with patients, because the patients coming in who had chronic kidney disease, they looked so dreadful. Their diets are awful. The details of boiling a potato for 20 minutes, etc. And they looked so pasty and below par, and that kept me going. When I would sometimes think, oh, this is a nuisance, because that was their everyday life,
Yeah.
which could be changed.
I know, and that's, to me, is the thing that's the thing that I would really like people to think about, is the fact, a couple of days ago, or last week, I think it was, National Kindness Day, or Be Kind to,
Just random kindness was
yeah,
Tuesday.
a
Yes.
random act of kindness.
Yes,
And
Tuesday.
I just think, people were posting little things on Facebook. Oh, I've done that. It made me feel really good. It made me feel good for doing that. Or the recipient of the kindness thought it was amazing. I think, the vast majority of people are intrinsically good and kind and want to help, if they know how they can help. And I think if people understood what a difficult life it is for somebody on dialysis, somebody who's waiting for a phone call, and they could go on for days, weeks, months, and years in some cases, many years in some cases, wait for that phone call, which could potentially change their lives, so that they're not stuck to a dialysis machine for so many hours a day. Wouldn't people want to help? Wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they want to help? And that's the feeling I had: is why wouldn't they want to help? Is that was obviously how you felt. Have you met many people who feel the same way as you?
Oh yes, donors. Yes, absolutely. We tend to. I haven't got one organised this year, I don't think, but we tend to have a Give a Kidney annual general meeting, and everybody feels the same, and they're all ordinary people.
Is there something which links you all together? Is there something that makes you different to other people, in that you all decided that you wanted to do this? Or is it, can you help me with this? Can you explain?
I really don't think there is. And it's people, I've heard people say, I saw somebody being interviewed on the television. I didn't realise you could do that. So I thought, well, I'll do that. And so, publicity is the big thing, and people realising they have 2 kidneys, and they'll be fine with one on the whole.
Yes. Going back to your surgery, the day of your surgery, how did you feel? Did you feel nervous, trepidatious, excited about the gift you're about to give? How was it?
No, because again, it was a matter of everything going wrong. I arrived the night before in the ward where I was told to go. There was no bed. There was no expectation that I was going to be there. My son, who came with me, said, "Please go home." And it was only the thought that my recipient was also in hospital that evening, waiting for her surgery the next morning, that kept me there. And so I was so indignant about everything that, just getting a bed overnight, which happened to be in the gynae ward. And again, this I'm sure doesn't happen now because everything is really structured. So no, I was excited. And the morning of my surgery, they brought a trolley to take me to the theatre. I said, I don't need to go on a trolley. I'll walk to the theatre, which they thought was a bit surprising. But no, it was great.
How did you feel when you woke up after the operation? And how was the general recovery process for you?
It was a shame because the surgeon had done many laparoscopic operations, which he was proceeding with me, but a tiny vessel that he hadn't identified tore when he was removing the kidney. So I had to have a conventional incision. So that was a bit different and just, a little bit more complicated, obviously. But the important thing was that he got the kidney out and sent it away. And so when I woke up, he was on one side of my bed and my daughter was on the other side. And the surgeon said to Celia, "You realise your mum is the first person to give a kidney to a stranger?" And she said, "Well, that won't be significant because nobody else will be crazy enough to do it." And so, when we reached the 1,000 mark, I was very pleased to tell her that there were other crazy people around.
Yeah.
Yes, it was I didn't like the morphine pump because it made me feel sick, so I asked for that to be taken down. I got out of bed very quickly. Unfortunately, in my bay there was an infection, and which made me think I wanted to leave earlier. So I had my surgery on a Monday, and I left on the Wednesday because I felt I'd be safer at home in those circumstances.
How long did it take you to get back to your everyday life? Because you're quite a fit person. And this is nearly 20 years ago.
Yes.
When you were 63.
Yes.
How long did it take you to get back to your everyday?
I would probably say altogether 3 months.
So not a significant time.
No,
but were you still able to look after yourself? In
oh
the
yes,
meantime?
I lived alone then, and I was, yes.
People worry about the long-term effects of just having one kidney. How has your health been since you donated? It's nearly 20 years. And do you feel any different living with one kidney than you did living with two kidneys?
I certainly don't feel any different. And the two great things are that one is investigated so thoroughly in advance. And of course, some people are really disappointed because they're actually found to have only one kidney anyway.
Yeah.
And it's only since antenatal scans that people know whether they happen to have only one, because you can live so successfully with one, or people just rarely may have three, or various things, or they may have other morbidity that makes them unsuitable, which means that can then be treated, and also one is eligible every year for a checkup, and so apparently statistically we live more healthy and longer lives than people who haven't given a kidney.
Yeah, because basically your health has been monitored year on year, which is something which is not open to the general population,
Absolutely.
especially in these days. Did you have a donor glow? How did you feel when you knew the transplant had been successful? Did you sort of feel, yes, this is what I wanted, this is how I wanted to feel, I've done something amazing, I saved somebody's life?
Oh no, I didn't think of it like that. I was pleased I assumed it would be successful. And I was fascinated. I thought my kidney had been blue lighted, but then I was told subsequently it just went on the back of a motorbike. And so when the whole procedure was over, I was pleased to hear that it was successful. And I for a long time, I didn't want to know anything about, but after about 5 years, I realised that I'd quite like to know that it was still successful in its new owner. And so I asked the staff at the Royal Free Hospital to check, and they did that, because we haven't had any contact. I haven't had any contact with the donor, with the recipient, and it was. And now about every 5 years or so since then, I've asked again, and it's still alive and well and living.